No, I got a surprise for you, though, with that.
What do you got?
So I was going to save this to the end, but I can do it now. The reason I don't have cans is because I have so many they won't fit in my car.
What?
Yeah, so many. I was able to work with a local store that I'll name in a little bit, and we are donating $2,000 worth of canned goods on your behalf.
What?
Yeah.
Hold on. You brought a truckload of cans to me? I mean, what do I need to know about this? Where do they come from? Say Wise Markets, they're my sponsor.
They did not come from Wise. So I actually went to BJ's, if you're familiar with the wholesale club.
I know, okay.
And we were able to get $2,000 worth of non-perishable items for your cause. And there's just so much. I can't put it in my car.
Where is it? Where is it right now?
It's still at their store. I have to have it delivered, or I have to go rent some kind of a truck so I can bring it to you.
See, I have the Maryland Food Bank coming here a little later on in the day. And so I set it up that at 4:40 every day, we have a local pantry. So what the deal is today, our local pantry, St. John's, I have all my notes here on my phone. So let me just get my phone out, read it off here. St. John's Food Pantry, yesterday was unbelievable. We did the Grace and Hope Mission downtown. So if you ever use Gay Street, like where the Chick-fil-A is off of Pratt, and you make the left on Gay.
Oh, yeah.
On the left side, right before you get to the block, there is a beautiful sign. It's a cross, and it looks like it's been there since like 100 years.
Yeah.
It says Grace and Hope Mission. I swear I thought it was dead in the 80s. I just thought it was a sign from a building. Real place. The woman that's been running it for 49 years from Norfolk. She reminded me of my mother and my mother's sister. I've had such a cool first couple of days. But we gave all to them yesterday at Fadley. So it's going to local pantries. So
Okay,
I don't
great.
know. So I'm thinking that the St. John's folks here hit the, Santa Claus showed up in the case of Steve Taormino. Tell me what you do, because you've been jiving like marketing and web and communication really with my son, who's the executive producer. Don't blame him for anything that went wrong today. User error is all on me today. Blame JR, don't blame me.
A friend of mine used to tell me when I made a mistake, he'd call me on the phone, and he's an IT guy, and he would say, do you know what the problem is? I said, no, what's the problem?
User error.
No, he said it's the ID 10T error. Have you heard of this?
ID 10T. Go ahead.
And he used to tell me, he
10T.
said, now you need to write this down. If you guys are listening, write it down because you need to remember this. And he says it's all caps. So I'd write the ID 10T. And you know what that spells when you write it out?
No, I don't.
It spells idiot.
Idiot.
So it's the user error. And he used to get on me all the time about that. And I'd have it written and posted up on my walls. And he'd always refer to it. He said, did you do the ID 10T error again?
Well, it goes back to user error.
Exactly.
And I'm the user, right? So Steve and I got to know each other through business and doing business in local. I said to my son, I think of you as sort of my age, and I think of him as a kid, and you're like 12 months apart, like literally. So you wearing your Orioles thing.
I am. So, yeah, so
You've
back to your
never
question.
seen him win.
No, it's I mean, technically, back in the 90s,
barely, right?
I've never seen him go to a series. That's for sure.
Okay.
And I want to see that.
Right. Okay. But back to what you do. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I actually have an interesting story about my business. So, I started my business completely accidentally. So, I'm the accidental entrepreneur.
Okay.
I went to school for music. My goal was to be a rock star, so I got hog wild in that.
But what do you play?
Paul, I play the guitar, the bass guitar. I sing. I play a little piano, and I play the euphonium horn.
What horn?
Do you even know? I was going to say, do you know what a euphonium horn is?
No. I know what a French horn is. I don't know what a euphonium
horn. So
horn
it's
is.
essentially it's a mini tuba. It's a small version of a tuba. And I didn't originally play that. I went to a concert band for trumpet. And we went to this band, and there were so many trumpets. So the band director said, hey, a euphonium has the same keys as a trumpet with one extra valve. Would you consider transferring?
Is it more like Chuck Mangione kind of thing, or no?
No, not at all. But
what does it sound like?
It sounds like a baritone horn.
Okay.
Essentially.
All right,
So
all
it's got a deeper baritone voice. But
would they let you play with the tuba guys down at Christmas? Could you have been a Santa tuba guy?
Yes, 100%.
So you would fit in that band?
I would.
All right, that's all that matters. Yeah, okay.
But anyhow, so I went to school for that, and I played all those instruments. And I was in this local rock band that ended up getting some really good press. We started writing our own music, and I would say by 1998, 1999, we were getting interest by local labels and some national labels. We ended up on MTV for a while, CD sales, because that's what you did back then. You sold CDs, right? We had CD sales all around the world.
T-shirts.
Well, we didn't sell any T-shirts.
Merch. Got to get some merch.
But anyhow, long story short, when we started entertaining these record labels, they all told me one thing: you need to have a website for your band, because MySpace was brand new. Think about that for a second. MySpace was brand new.
MySpace brand new. So this is 01?
Oh one, exactly.
Okay, all right, I got you.
MySpace was
well,
new.
my kid's your age. I mean, I remember when he came home, he's like, Dad, there's this thing called Napster. We can steal music forever.
That's
and I'm
right.
like, let's do it, man.
And then LimeWire came out after that. But yeah.
This is an iPod. Right, exactly. Right.
So I'm at school. I went to Archbishop Curley High School.
All right.
And these record labels, they gave me this phone number for a company that built websites. They were an agency. And I'm dialing the phone number right next to the SDR is what they called it at Curly, the cafeteria. And the agency tells me one thing. They said, no problem, we can build you a website. We just built a website for the Foo Fighters. We just finished the last one for the Goo Goo Dolls. And I'm sitting here and I'm starting to get a little scared. They said, our minimum retainer starts at $30,000. They don't know I'm sitting in my house.
How much did you have?
I had like $12 to my name.
Right, exactly.
But
yeah, roller skating money.
I was very professional. I said, oh, okay, and I started asking some more questions. And then I'm like, I'm going to have to call you guys back. And I hung up the phone. And I went back to the band, and I said, guys, we are not getting a website. Now, they're all older than me, because remember, I was in high school. They're all in their 20s and above.
Come on, you could have done a GeoCities.
Well, that's what they told me.
Right.
That's exactly what they told me.
I was alive. I was an adult then. You were not.
So they all
Even though
pointed
you're an
to me.
adult now.
They all pointed to me, and because I knew about MySpace, they assumed I knew about technology, right? If you're a young guy who knows tech all the time, that's what you get. So they all pointed at me and said, you have to figure this out. And I'm just like, what am I going to do? So I went back to school, and I found this student bootleg copy of something called Dreamweaver, if you remember that.
I remember Dreamweaver.
Yeah, I had to teach myself how to write
That's
HTML.
Coding. That's coding.
Yeah.
Like flat out HTML.
Flat out
like,
HTML.
Yeah, all right, got it.
I had to teach myself HTML. At the time, Flash animation was like the big new technology. So I taught myself how to do Flash animation.
Because it can make an ad move.
Exactly.
Period.
And then
this before videos, before YouTube. I mean, it's really hard for a young person, I would think, that if you're of that era to say, I mean, I was talking about beta tapes with him this morning in VHS because Greg Landry is my sponsor, Towson Transfers. I have someone coming later. I hope she's not here yet. We were in a school play in 1982. I have the VHS of it, so I have made that an MP4.
Oh, fantastic.
And she doesn't know it. So she's going to have a copy of the play today.
She's going to get it today?
She's going to get it today.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Just like you gave me $2,000 of thanks for the Maryland Food Bank. The Maryland Food Bank guy's here. He just gave $2,000. You got to come get the money with the food bank. You food bank? I see food bank here. Yeah, all right. So he's giving. Got big muscles for giving. So anyway, technology. I'm going back to video. How would you explain to a kid a Betamax and a VHS at this point when you're like Dreamweaver's a really new to me, but to you it's like brand new.
Yeah. So I wouldn't explain that to a kid today at all, to be completely honest with you.
They don't need it.
They don't need it. They absolutely don't need it. They have no clue what it is, and it's just going to be
you don't
a
need
long
to write
discussion.
Code. You just need to drive the highway that's been made for you.
Yep. So after a year and a half of teaching myself how to do all that stuff, we built a website. It worked for our band, and it was well enough that other bands, other DJs, other people in the industry wanted them. And I knew the going rate was $30,000, right? So I said, why not sell them for $5?
I thought you would say 29.
Well, I did want some business. I mean, at the time, let's see, I was working part-time at Victoria's Secret, right? So that was my only income.
We're all learning business. I learned business selling baseball cards when I was 13 years old. So my thing was if the card was worth $1 and the kid offered me 60 cents, I would sell it just to get rid of it, right? Because I'm like, just sell it. Because nobody's giving me $1, even though the Beckett book says it's worth $1. But there was a point where like you didn't want to sell it for 20 cents.
Exactly.
You didn't want to undercut the whole
market.
market.
Yourself.
I wanted to be the cheapest guy that could sell it at the thing without giving it away.
Yeah.
When you're in a room full of people that all have Brooks Robinson cards.
That's right.
Just take 25 cents off and you win the bid. You gave the store away though at $5,000.
Well, I was 17. So that's how I started. Now, mind you, my music career was still on an upward rise, so I was fully expecting to be a rock star.
What were you playing?
At the time, it was modern rock. So we wrote our own music, and we played cover music. So
in 2004, 4?
Between 1999 and 2005 was really the height of that.
I'm just trying to think of the bands that were big then.
Oh, the big new band at the time was like Creed.
Okay, so you were trying to sound that
Yeah,
kind
there
of
was.
way.
Let's see, there was Creed. There
Daughtry
was
kind of
the
sound.
Daughtry. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That bluesy, deep
Right.
rock kind of sound.
Nickelback coming in.
Nickelback was brand
Hinder
new.
about to happen
Yep.
at that point.
Yep. And we did really well. We really did. We put it this way: we broke even. And
I want to sing in your band, dude. Let's go do it.
You could.
Now that I know you're a musician, I could put you together with. I put Gina Shock's band together.
Did you really?
The House of Shock's my band.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
No, this happened. This happened here at Costas last Christmas.
really.
Yeah, so Gina Shock, who I never knew but was from Dundalk, did the show for the first time a year and a half ago. We really hit it off. We were Drug City. We stayed in touch. Her and her boyfriend manager, Wendell, was a great guy. Then they came at Christmas, and we sat over in the corner. They had a huge Christmas tree. And I brought John Allen over, and I brought her original band, which was Beyond Words, a guy named George Candelas. His wife was my art teacher at Dundalk. Small Timor, man.
Yeah, man, everybody
we all
knows
know
everyone.
each other. So we told these old stories about Edie and the Eggs, which was her original band, punk rock band.
Okay.
And George was the drummer was the guitar player in Gina's original band in 1977 before she ran off
Okay.
to Hollywood.
Yeah.
So she comes back, and Wendell hits me after Christmas and says, "We're doing this thing at the Hard Rock."
That's where we
And-
had my CD release party at Hard Rock.
Right. Well, she was doing her,
Bands
she did
don't
her
do
book
that
release
anymore, I don't
party
think,
there,
by the way.
right? So she hit me and said, "Do you know a guy that can strum the guitar?" And I'm like, "Sure, Ed Lauer." So I give her to Ed, and then he texts me and said, "Do you know a bass player?" And I'm like, "No." Yeah, I know. So Steve Port's my buddy, who's in a band called Classics, married to my high school friend Elaine, great guy, hit him. Next thing I know, John Allen's recruited into the band because he's so cute. He looks like Keith Urban. He's cute. That's pretty good, Gina. She loves my Gina, I think, because I do a pretty good one. So they put the band together and they went out. They played the Stone Pony.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So Gina's like drumming and singing in a band with everybody I know.
Yeah.
That if I were to put a band together, I would call them because they're good humans.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want to be in a band with jerks.
Well, in the music scene in Baltimore, it's so small. Everyone knows everyone. Now, the cool thing is there are some really famous, great musicians that have come out of Baltimore, and people don't even know it. And this has been for a long, long period of time in the jazz industry, the rock industry, the pop industry. There's a guy named Chick Webb who was the first swing drummer back in the 20s. He came out of Baltimore. Tony Braxton came out of Baltimore.
Let's get hold on
it's
here.
just crazy.
David Byrne,
Yep.
Rick Ocasek.
Yes.
Well, Dennis Chambers, some other guys.
Oh
that
my
are
gosh,
local.
Dennis Chambers. I mean, Dennis Chambers, Carl Filipiak.
Who's
all
the
those
guy in
guys.
the Little River band? The guy, one of the guys in the current Little River band's a local guy. I'm trying to think.
Oh, I don't know.
Touring musicians.
Yeah.
I mean,
There
Billy
are so
Kemp,
many
there
great
some
musicians
great
that come out of this
musicians
area.
involved.
There
Sure.
really are. It's got a long, rich history of music.
Shannon Larkin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Godsmack. There you go.
Absolutely.
Well, I used to interview Wrathchild America back in then. Well, I had long hair. And
Really?
I have
I
it
can't
now.
imagine. The first time I saw you with hair, it was highlighted. Remember that back in the
Right,
90s?
of course.
You had long hair?
I had Hammerjack's hair. I
Okay.
had a girlfriend that liked long hair in 1990, 91, 92. So I grew my hair long because it was Hammerjack's thing. When I quit the Sun in 92, my hair was short, but then it got long. So I grew it for about 2.5 years, 92, 93, into 94. And my hair was cut. My hair was longer than this.
Oh, okay.
My hair was down to my
So you had like
Belch.
70s type hair.
So my wife calls it a mullet. I look at it, and it looks a lot like what Eddie Vedder's hair looked like then, which isn't long in the front.
Yeah.
It was tapered in the side, and it was a bi-level, I guess. And I had a ponytail then, but not like I wore it more out. It wasn't as curly as it is now. But Brad Pennington cut my hair at Hooters for charity.
Oh, wow.
In May of '94, before the strike.
Got it.
So you were 10.
Did you like donate it to like
Yeah,
a
I
Locks of
donated
Love?
to
Or?
Sam Lamantia, who was doing Ed Block Courage Awards. His son was my guitar player.
Okay.
Paul Lamantia was in Walk-Ins Welcome.
Yep.
Playing a lot of rock bands around. Go see Paul, get your hair cut. Don't do what I do what I say. I don't get my hair cut, but he's right on Joppa Road, so
Okay.
you can go see him. So yeah, I love music.
But anyway, I really thought I was going to be a rock star.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how
I
many?
never thought I was gonna
I mean, well, I mean, how many 18-year-olds, in Baltimore get on MTV? How many are getting requests from Australia for, CDs and rights to replay your music and stuff like that? So I was like, I am on this path. I am going to be a rock star. This is my career. So I said, I'm going to go to school for jazz. So I was going to go to Towson for jazz performance and composition, and I thought I was done. That was it. Then I hit the prefaces, the very top, and I realized it wasn't going to go any further. And that was around that 2001, 2002
Why?
time frame, because we had just maxed out what we could do. Now,
I see these guys doing yacht rock review now,
Well,
right?
so-
like that kind of a band doing covers and stuff. I see
Yeah.
bands that are just the guys that are doing the Zeppelin thing, that get the
Yep.
lead out and stuff. They're touring musicians, and I don't know how much money they're making, but like Yacht Rock Review now is opening for REO Speedwagon and
That's right.
Train. I don't know if that's a $25,000 a night gig, a $50,000, whatever that is, but they have to leave their families,
Yeah,
right? Like
they do.
Like you have to leave your families, and you have to get on a bus
And you're
roll.
gone.
And if 38, you may or may not want to do that if you had 2 kids right now and a
Yeah.
wife at home or whatever. So I think anybody that dreams of that dream when you're a kid, like all of our, like you were when you were a kid, and you follow it like Gina Shock did, right? That it's all that you do the rest of your life.
it's true.
That's a really rare thing. You know, I mean,
It is.
I have a lot of musician friends that are older than me, not my age, but older than me, that all at some point had to take a job because they were in a band. I mean, I have a friend that was the bass player for Dido. Mm-hmm. He's a yoga. He traveled the world playing bass in a serious festivals, like all of that. And there just comes a point where you're like, now he teaches yoga in Colombia instead of doing that, because it sounds sexier than it probably is.
That's
As we
absolutely
lost
true.
Toby Keith this morning with all the road. It's a tough life, no matter who you are. Even if you're
It's hard.
Billy Joel flying around and hanging at the Four Seasons right now, it's still not the easiest thing in the world to
No,
do.
it's a lot of travel. It's a lot of work, a lot of tight spaces. Everything's last minute, too. You're always showing up, and all of a sudden you got to be on stage. And if you're a family person like I am, that is hard. You know, I do have a wife at home. I do have an 8-year-old daughter that, you know, I just love spending time with them. So that life wouldn't be
And the
for
Orioles
me.
about to win the World Series. So you better,
Let's hope so.
Right.
Let's hope so. But anyway, long story short, I realized I wasn't going to be a rock star. I'm getting this degree in jazz performance and composition. I'm like, well, I could go be a session player, but honestly, the money isn't that great. That's not the life I want. I could be a music teacher. That really wasn't interesting, in fact. Then there was the idea of, I could just be a starving artist, and that wasn't so great either. So I took this idea of building websites and communication. I decided to make a career out of it, and thankfully, I haven't had to look back.
2004 or
2002, 2003.
Wow. So you were writing Dreamweaver
At the
right?
time.
All right. So how? And that's a whole different skill set than like
was.
turning it into a business, right?
Well, so here's something I learned from the music world. The reason I think we didn't succeed as a band and we didn't become rock stars is because we didn't know how to set goals and achieve them. We got to our first goal, which was make a CD, write music, and do well with it. We did that. And then we had nothing lined up to do next. What's the next step? And because we didn't know what the next step was, what the next goal was, we had nothing to strive and achieve. And that's why we started to fall. So I learned that lesson. And when I started another business in marketing communications, I made sure the next step was always planned before I achieved the first one. That way I could always talk with my team and the people I was working with and tell them what the vision is long term, not just what the short term goals are at the moment.
It's funny you say that, because I'm assessing where I am at 25 years, and you're the kind of guy that can help my business. You have helped my business. One of the reasons you're out today. You're really here for Vehicles for Change, because Marty's not here. So I want to point that out. There is a charity and a community component to Steve Taormino being here. By the way, if you're out listening and it's lunchtime and you're driving around, we are at Costas. It is the Tuesday of a cup of soup or bowl. It is Crab Cake Row. We got folks filing in. It was really quiet here this morning. I mean, you show up at Costas at 9 in the morning. It's quiet. A lot of the places aren't open just yet. Coco's won't be open early tomorrow. But we have great guests at Coco's on Wednesday. We're going to be Thursday at State Fair in Catonsville, and then on Friday up at Pappas and Timonium. We're hoping the folks bring canned goods. You don't have to bring $2,000 and a whole trunk full like Steve did. You don't have to be show off for the charity, but we really appreciate it. And we are offering a free cup or soup. I don't know what the hell I got to give you a whole gallon of soup when you bring that much. But we're doing a good turn for the Maryland Food Bank. Drop it off. It's feeding local people here in local shelters all week long, wherever we are. And we're moving around. We've had some tech issues as expected. What do you think of this Rodecaster, man? Look,
I like it.
Doesn't that look like a light bright with Christmas?
It does. In fact, I got my daughter a light bite for Christmas this year. I didn't know they still made them.
My parents lied to me. They would always say, "You get that at Christmas," and then I didn't get it. That's why it turned out the way it turned out.
Well, she's not listening to the
I
radio.
never had a light bright.
So my kid isn't listening to the radio right now because she's in school, but she wanted a pogo stick for Christmas, and I didn't get it. But what she doesn't
She'll
know,
remember that the rest of her life.
she's getting
I mean,
it for
she is.
she's getting it for her birthday in April. She's not listening. She won't know.
Two things that my parents promised me that I never got. One was Light Bright. And now I have one because JR talked me into getting one. $700 Light Bright, and I can mute my mic anytime I want without realizing it.
Or your guess.
At some point, I will learn how to. You think I'm kidding? This thing looks like a Light Bright. I want to show everybody. Look at this thing. It looks like a Light Bright, and I have no idea how it functions. But JR is right. I can touch. I feel better when I can touch JR when I'm doing the show. He's off, but I'm literally touching him right now. So he's getting free soup out of this too. So, and JR's been our engineer. He's the one that found WNST in 19. You know a story?
Really?
JR found WNST back. Our original engineer was a beautiful guy named Dwight Weller, and Dwight died. He had cancer and he died in 1997. Last time I saw Dwight alive, I was on a plane back from Memphis seeing the Oilers of Memphis of Tennessee, soon to be Nashville, playing the Ravens of Baltimore in the Barney suits.
That's
and
right.
Jim Harbaugh was our quarterback. So
that was the only time we played the Orioles.
No, actually, he wasn't. It was Vinny. Vinny was still the quarterback in 97.
No, but I mean, that was the only time we played the Oilers, I believe, because then they became.
We played him in 96 in Houston. We played him in
right.
97 in Memphis. And we played him in 98.
We played him 3 times?
We played him at the Liberty. We were in the same division. We played him in the Liberty Bowl in 97. That's in Memphis. We played him in Nashville in the Vanderbilt Stadium.
Yes.
In 98.
But
that was the Jim Harbaugh game. They played. It was. I call it the erector set because when you see it, it looks like a roller coaster ride. It's put together with sticks. The Vanderbilt Stadium, and then in '99 they moved into the big stadium there, and they became the Titans.
Got it. I thought they became the Titans before they moved in.
They were wearing Oilers jerseys in Vanderbilt that year. They were Oilers for 3 years, then Titans when they moved into the new stadium. And they took on the Star and McNair and like all that, Eddie George, and then we went in the next year and beat them.
That's right. The first team to beat them in the Coliseum.
I don't want to paraphrase, Brian Billick, but when you go into the den of the lions, you go in with a spear, screaming at the son of a bee like a banshee.
That's right.
Is that pretty good?
That's about it.
It's pretty good, right? I love Brian. Steve Taormino is our guest. CAA.
No.
What are you?
CC&A. Strategic Media.
I want to get it right.
CC&A.
What would this stand for?
Well, actually, I started a company. It's a consultancy.
So that's why I'm screwed up.
See, it stands for
Mr. Branding guy here.
At the time, it was a consultancy, and all I had was subcontractors. So it was Conceptual Consulting and Associates. Obviously, we rebranded it.
When I started, this was called WKDB. It was Kids Broadcasting when I bought it. So I petitioned to make it WNST, which I really screwed up because I was egotistical in the 90s. Mm-hmm. I've changed. But Nasty Nestor was my name, right? So when I got the station, WNST was available, and I'm like, And then later on, when I became a .net, my wife came up with this, by the way. We never stopped talking Baltimore sports. Mm-hmm. So that's why we went with WNST. But WNST meant Nasty Nestor. It was so stupid of me. It was one of the really big mistakes I made because I should have branded it the Nest. And the Nest because Ravens and Orioles were birds.
That's right.
Right? And I didn't like Nest. I still don't like Nest. Brian Adams called me Nest on stage when he took my request 2 weeks ago. I prefer Ness or Nestor. I never liked Nestor. It was always weird. So Ness is better. But the Nest would have worked for me.
That would have been great branding.
And here's the other thing. And I came up with, if I would have run for mayor, and I was going to run for mayor, my mayoral slogan was Together Ness. Together N-E-S. Together Ness, right?
Great hashtag.
Right. I didn't realize Ness was a suffix in the way that I would want it to be a suffix until... Oh my God, 2012, that I started thinking like awesomeness.
That's right.
Forgetfulness, stupidness, that kind of thing. I should have owned the Preakness.
Yeah, Preakness. Greatness.
Great. Yeah, you could do any, awfulness. You could do anything you want. But
as long as it's not forgetfulness.
I didn't own it. It happened today, too. Happens every day. But the CC&A, you've kept the original name. So then I rebranded to WNST, and then I became WNST.net, which is We Never Stop Talking Baltimore sports, right? And then I went with Baltimore Positive because my wife,
Be More
her
Positive.
blood type was B positive, and I
right.
went with Be More Positive. So I've moved because like I don't want people necessarily like I'm in Dundalk. Somebody's going to call me nasty here before
Eventually,
3 o'clock,
for
right?
sure.
Yeah, I mean. And that's my fault, right? That was my branding, right? And if people think of me as an old man AM radio station because it's 4 letters that begins with a W,
Yeah.
and you have to go to the AM side of the dial, which you don't. You can just preset anything at this point. I mean, I'm really, other than coverage area, and if I wanted to buy BAL, it would have cost $50 million 20 years ago,
True.
right? To your point of $30,000 website, $5,000, $1 million radio station with some partners and a loan, or $12 million WQSR. There just was there was no entry point to that. But rebranding is a beautiful thing. My wife works for Verizon, right? So like she was New England Tel, 9X. Bell Atlantic, right?
Yes, all of them.
I mean, I think you should rebrand. That's why, as a branding dabbler, CC&A, I think you should rebrand. That's what.
So I'm not a fan of rebranding unless you're trying to hide from a crisis.
Not? Okay.
I am
Oh,
not. Now,
really?
brand evolution is a little bit different, right?
So if you were CC&A, what are you now?
So we are still CC&A.
But you're CC&A,
We're not
but what do you
change
say?
it.
We
Strategic
are
media.
Strategic media.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've been that for the last 10, 15 years now. But our audience at the time, and it still is primarily, is all these big professional service organizations. The lawyers, the accountants, and they all have the acronyms, and they all have the names of their partners in their whatnot.
I never know what they stand for.
Well, actually, there's a law for it in the accounting world. You can't quote me on it, but there's something that says you have to have the name of the partners in the name of the company if you're an accountant or
That's
CPA.
why they're SPK, RF, and
Exactly.
C and D and Y and RMK
Exactly.
and D.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe someone here can tell me the exact law because I don't know it fully, but it's something like
There's
that.
some law that when I read ads for MHIC numbers and you have to do all that stuff.
You do.
So, yep.
But our target audience was those organizations. So we wanted a name that would fit with their expecting. And it works for us. It works great for us. So that's how it ended up.
No, I got it wrong. So
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, not at all.
I'm like,
trust me.
I don't know. You're Steve to me.
I am to most people.
I'll tell you this. For the branding I've done, I've owned the radio station 25 and a half years. There are still many, many people to come up and say, "Now you AM or FM, what numbers are you?" And I say 15, AM 1570. Where's that? Well, it's AM and it's 1570. In the old days, JR would know this, Philco. You just had the little thing. You go down to about 14 and 15 and you tune it.
Right there.
And then I pop in.
Yep.
And then I pop out,
That's right.
So, I don't know. We've come a long way.
We have. So what we do today is obviously we're the digital component because that was one of our cornerstones, and we still do all that stuff. But we are marketing, advertising, PR, branding, the whole kit and caboodle, and we're multinational. We have clients obviously all throughout the U.S., some worldwide as well. So we've
you got to
grown
get
a
one
lot.
of Towson's. We got to figure this out, you and me.
We do.
You're way too smart for me not to pick your brain. I mean, literally, I may do that in the next segment. I'm gonna hang with you a little bit because I want to talk about Marty a little bit. I want to talk about vehicles for change because one of the things we talked about today's community, not just marketing. I love having you on. You come on anytime you want. We sit here and throw it back, have a crab cake, have a beer anytime. But people making a difference in the community.
Yes.
And this. It comes from my heart. I'm doing it, right? But I see you out at these places, and you're like a real pimp for vehicles, right? Like
I am.
for your causes and the people that you care about, and we wind up in the same circles. My son just met you. You get out of bed in the morning, you go to networking events, you run into guys like this. It's the kind of people you meet. People that get out of bed early in the morning and want bad free coffee and good conversation, and to meet people.
You do.
I see Marty at these events all over town, and I've known Marty, got 20 years probably, and I've known Jim Schwartz, his cousin,
Jim.
and forever as a football guy, and Jim's wife Kathy's family, and
Great people, the whole great family.
But what Marty's managed to do, I told my son, I think he's been on like Oprah and Ellen and stuff. Like he's like
Kelly Clarkson.
Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah.
So he's moved this sort of what was a hyper local thing into more a statewide thing, into more regional thing, and now it's really a national thing. And
It is.
I think he always envisioned that. And honestly, Marty would be here today. He was cordially invited. He just had a prior commitment this week, couldn't be here. So you're his pimp today. So,
I am the
so
other.
meet the new Marty Schwartz.
Much
Who's a
better
great
looking,
guy.
I'll say.
Him or you?
What do you mean?
Hey, I don't
come on
know.
now.
Hey, be nice to
If
Marty.
you have to ask.
He's watching out there now. Maybe he's listening.
All right, Vehicles for Change. So I've been involved with a lot of different charitable organizations over the years, and all of them are fantastic for the most part. But I will singly say that I don't know that any of them have the impact that Vehicles for Change has. And the reason for that is because Vehicles for Change not only impacts the people that they serve, they impact the community around them in whole, the cities in whole, and in most cases, the entire state in whole because of the nature of what they do. And I didn't know this when I first met them, right? So I knew them as a car donation program. You know, they take
Well,
cars.
transportation's such a huge issue.
Well,
I mean,
it
we
is.
talk about it in the city with busing and public transportation, that sort of thing. But to be really functional at the level you need to be to get to a job in this city, you kind of need wheels.
You absolutely
because
do need
public
wheels.
you don't need it in Manhattan, right? But you need rent money in Manhattan,
True.
which is a different. I mean, so that's another problem. But in our community here, if you don't have wheels and you live in Dundalk, I don't, like, my parents didn't drive, and we lived on the bus line in 1978, and it was a bit of an impediment then.
Yeah.
I talk wistfully about taking the 22 bus to Memorial Stadium and taking the number 10 with my dad down into the city in the 70s to see Skipjacks and Clippers games and whatnot.
The nostalgia of it.
But, like, yeah, but my uncle had a car, and he, you know, I had a Dundalk family. Nobody wanted to help anybody. It was like one of the reasons I do all this cool stuff is because, like, I saw dysfunction throughout most of the first 20 years of my lifetime. So
Yeah.
I've been trying to be more functional lately. But part of it is transportation in my family was not taken for granted. My dad was a streetcar guy, got up early, took the bus to the point. One of the reasons he didn't come to Costas as much, he took the bus. The bus
Right.
didn't go past Costas. It went down Pop's Tavern.
Yes.
It went down Wise Avenue. So my dad, when he would come home with shrimp from Costas, it meant he got a ride home.
That's right.
And he coworker, you know, Joe Thomas gave me a ride home. We stopped at Costas, got a beer, got some shrimp. So my dad never drove. So I mean, it speaks to when I got to be 16, having the keys it's how I got a job. It's how I did everything. I don't think about it like that because I've been driving for 40 years. But if you couldn't afford a car, have wheels, had an unfortunate circumstance, this is where Marty comes in.
It does. And so just to point this out, that's where they started. So people would donate cars. They'd find families who are getting up and taking those buses to work. And it's taking them 3 and 4 hours round trip just to get to a job that's most likely minimum wage and get back home.
Or having their kids be latchkey, too.
Well, yeah. And
that leads to its own problems.
And that's where I'm going next. So these people, they're not making much money, but they're still doing it. They're making a way to get to work and get back. And oftentimes it was at the expense of their families. So their kids, they couldn't go to after-school programs. They couldn't be involved in sports. None of that would happen. What would happen? They'd end up standing on the corner, getting in trouble, stuff like that. So now these families, they have a car. Now they're able to go home to after work and get their kids to these after-school programs, get their kids to these schools. And a lot of these kids now have a stable family life. And what this does is it starts the process to end what is oftentimes a generational poverty issue. So think about that. Vehicles for Change, in this one thing, by awarding a car to someone, is ending a generational poverty. That doesn't just affect the mother and the immediate family. That affects their family moving forward for generations at a time. So what they do, they take that idea and say, okay, we're affecting people that have this issue. Now, how can we spread this? How can we develop it even further? So what they ended up doing is creating this program that trains people coming out of prisons in how to repair cars. Now, do you know much about people that come out of prisons and the process they have to go through?
I have learned a ton about the going back to jail, and when you come out of jail, if you don't have a thing and people and love and a sponsor and a place to go and a resource to get a job, and I think the one thing we talk so much about is come out of jail. I don't want to say I don't want to hire you, but I would be scared. You know,
no, you can say so. It's hard to find a job.
It's hard to hire someone who's been in jail, and it's hard for that person to get a job and to find that second chance.
And honestly, the
skill set too.
The skill set there as well. But honestly, the idea of hiring someone that's coming out for a long term is a little bit flipped, right? So you see someone that goes to jail, maybe there for a year or 6 months, and immediately think, maybe that's not too bad. Someone that came out of prison for 20 years, maybe they were in there.
They've never seen a phone.
They've never seen a phone.
Literally.
But
never
here's
seen
the thing:
internet.
the people that have been in there for 20 years, they don't want to go back. they're going to do everything in their power not to go back. Or that may not necessarily be the case with someone that wasn't in there very long. So we need to flip.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. So that's why I have smart people like you by. You just taught me something.
But the other side of it is
That is a great point. If you've been in a joint 20 years, you didn't get comfortable with it.
No.
You're just dying to get out. And you get out, and the last thing in the world you want to do is go back in.
And then what
and
is
some guys, things are so bad for them, they got to eat in there that was better in jail than it was on the street. I've heard that too.
And that's a problem.
That's freaky.
So they come out of prison, right? And the first thing that happens is
Are you St. John's?
they're
Go ahead.
So the first thing that happens, these guys comes out of prison and they're given the clothes that were on the back when they went in, and that's it, right? So what are they going to do? They're going to go back to the neighborhoods that they know. And on top of that, they have to check in with their parole officer, which, by the way, they can only do during normal business hours. So if you get a job, you got to tell your new employer, hey, I got to take off in the middle of the day to go check in with my parole officer. Oh, and also, it's not free. You have to pay money to go see your parole officer. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
You have to pay to see your parole
You
officer.
have to pay money. There's a cost to go see your parole officer. So, so how are these guys going to survive that environment, right? They have no job, some clothes, no transportation. You have to take off in the middle of the day to go see your parole officer, and you have to pay to see them all at the same time. So it's like a system that's set up to send these people back to prison because there's really nothing that they can do for the most part other than go back to their old lives to try and make money to go see their parole officer. It's a terrible system. That's why the recidivism rate nationally is about 70%.
I was going to use that word. I was going to say recidivism, but I couldn't get it out. Recidivism. Going back to jail is what I said.
Exactly. So
some people know what recidivism is because you don't want to have that, but that really is the biggest issue. And that's been the charge politically with the state and the city is the mayor saying, hey, the governor's sending people from jail back into my city and bad things are happening.
And they're not wrong.
And everybody's pointing in the other direction, right? The real direction is how do we fix it? And point at the problem, not at each other.
And that's what Vehicles for Change has done. So they started this program where when people coming out of prisons, they immediately, well, let me rephrase it. For people that apply for this, when they come out of prisons, they immediately have an opportunity to learn a trade, and that's auto repair, number one. So Vehicles for Change sponsors them. They teach them how to do this. They understand they have to check in with the parole officers. They understand there's a cost for it. And they go through an internship program where they're learning this trade. And then once they go through that process and they learn everything, Vehicles for Change then places them in employment like an employment agency would do. So now they have not only the training, but they've gone through the process of parole and all of that, and they have a record of positive employment somewhere. So they have referrals. The employers can come and say, how did they do?
That's beautiful.
What did they learn? You know what Vehicles for Change recidivism rate is right now out of the people that have gone through their program?
Go ahead.
1.5%.
They've had a hiccup. One hiccup, literally.
So the national is 70%. I think the state of Maryland is somewhere around 40 or 50%. Vehicles for Change is 1.5% over the last few years.
They're changing things.
They're changing things.
That's good. Vehicles for Change.
Exactly.
Right.
So they're changing things.
Good job, Marty. I love hearing this stuff.
They're changing things not only for the person, not only generationally, but when someone doesn't have to go back to prison, they're saving taxpayer money like crazy, right? I think it costs $30,000 to $40,000 a year for every person that's incarcerated. It comes out of the taxpayer dollars. And when they go back, that's just more drain.
We're feeding them and housing them and shelter, like all the above.
Well, of course we are, but if we don't have to do that because now they are a positive contributor to our society, why do that?
All right, I'm going to get Marty on to talk more about this at some point. How can people help? Because Marty's always doing stuff.
So you can
you're always helping Marty.
You can go to vehiclesforchange.org if you've got an old vehicle that you're willing to donate. And to be clear, it doesn't have to be a car that you would consider usable. It can be a beater. Any kind of vehicle.
I talked about my 1977 Caprice Classic wagon. It had brown panel. It was puke green.
That's right.
It was rusted out in the bottom.
That's
got
right.
10 miles to the gallon.
Yep. Yep. Donate it.
I wouldn't have thought I could have given that to anybody.
Yeah.
But yeah.
They take it. They'll take it.
I don't have it anymore.
Not only do they use it for their people in order to give them to someone to use, but they also use them for training purposes.
Nice.
Because they got these people coming in that need to be trained.
All right. Well, Marty's local. Steve Taormino's local. CC&A.
Strategic Media.
All right. I just want to get it right.
That's right.
What did I call it? CAA? What did I call it?
I don't know, but don't practice the wrong way.
CC&A. He's my dude. Always appreciate your wisdom, man. And you gave me some funny thing to read at the beginning that I didn't read. Steve started his career folding bras and panties for Victoria's Secret.
I did.
Was a featured musician on MTV television. That is MTV television.
Back then it was.
I want my MTV. Found himself detained in Cuba trying to explain the dad joke to Raul Castro's personal MPs. I was in Cuba once, but I went under the radar.
I almost didn't make it back.
Fidel and I were in the same room together. Is an expert witness for the Maryland Attorney General.
That's right.
I'll do that the next time. I don't even want to get into that. I lost Torben Green. I don't want to lose his wife. She's over here. She's going to talk good things. I started what is now a multinational marketing company at the age of 17. I didn't think the curly guys were this smart. I keep going back to this. You're a curly guy?
I'm a curly guy.
Friar for life?
Friar for now.
So I'm going to give a shout-out on the air right now, live radio, and when this replays, and I hope this guy finds me, okay? Barry Stitz, I'm looking for you. All right?
I know Barry.
I'm looking for you. I need Stitz's phone number. I want everybody. Stitz's name keep coming up with me.
Why?
Because I keep seeing curly people.
Oh, okay.
And curly people are like, hey, you know anything about curly? You know who it was? It was Colin. Colin works here at Costas. She knows Colin right here. So Colin, this guy, you know Colin? Yeah, Colin works here. And last Thursday morning, we did Fox 45 News. So can I give a plug to Costas?
Please.
All right. So originally, I wanted Damie from Fadley's to come do the segment with me on Fox 45. Patrice said, we need a chef so we could cook things, because me standing there looking stupid talking about a cup of Super Bowl, which I'm doing here with Steve. So she said, get one of your restaurants to come out. And I said, all right. So Damie's opening Fadley's underwater. I hit Pete like Tuesday afternoon. I'm like, Pete, I need Thursday morning, early in the morning, 8:30. Pete's like, I'll get out of bed at 4 in the morning. I'll steam crabs. I'll do shrimp. We'll do. And I'm like, dude, it's a soup thing. Just all we need is a vat of soup, a bowl, a ladle. No. We're going to do it first class. Pete got out of bed, because this is who Pete Triantafilos. I want to make sure I get it right. Pete gets out of bed at 4 in the morning, comes over here at 5 in the morning, steams crabs, fried up soft shells, brought all of this food and stuff to make it look pretty, left it all for Fox 40, brought crab cakes big as my head, fed all the Fox 45 people. You know, the
it's
whole
amazing
thing.
Place here.
So he brought a personal assistant, so I didn't have to grab everything out of the big Costas truck in front of Fox 45 over in 41st Street. And I know Colin. Colin works here. So Colin, tall. I didn't know he was so young. I thought he might have been 20. I said, hey, man, what part of town? I live Dundalk. You go to Dundalk? No, I go to Curly. I'm like, well, you lost. They just remodeled Dundalk. It's even better than when I went there. And so we started talking Curly. I'm like, you know Stitz? He's like, I play soccer for Stitz. Stitz is great. Yep. I said, Stitz and I played Little League together when we were 10 years old.
Oh, did you?
Eastwood Little League. He was on the Yankees. I was on the Orioles. We were real rivals, man. I had John Rollo was on my team, right? I had Mark Karolkowski on my team. I struck out with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 7th inning on a called third strike. Richie Paff struck me out on a low outside. It was a ball. It was below my knees, and my knees weren't as big. It's not that I'm still scarred about it. I mean, it happened in 1978, all right? But I'm
permanent
still talking
memory,
about
man.
it. I'm still talking about it, all right? You know, so Stitz was on the other team. He was the shortstop of the Yankees. So I've known Stitz. My son's name is Barry. Barry Stitz might have been the only other Barry that I ever knew as a young person. There was Barry Beck, Barry Manilow. There was Barry, a lot of Barrys. Some played hockey. Barry Goudreau from Boston. But my son is a Barry. My father's name was Bernard. His father was a Barney. So Barry sort of like was a compromise. You like your name or no? Indifferent. I don't like mine, so I didn't give you mine. You're welcome. So my son's here producing today. So Stitz came back into my life. My son was born in 84. Stitz came back into my life probably 89, 90. He was at Towson playing. Then he became Blast Spirit. And next thing I know, we're on airplanes together. He's doing the show with me.
Oh, yeah.
I have a million pictures of me. But I haven't seen Barry in, a dozen years.
Yeah.
And his name keeps coming up because I'm on the Fox 45 set with good-looking Colin, who says, I'm a Curly Friar. My parents wanted me to go to Curly.
Why didn't you?
There were no girls there.
We had a
Why
whole
would I go
we had a
there?
whole school of
Yeah,
girls.
but they were up the street.
Yeah, well, where do you think they came after
Yeah,
school?
I know what they did. They went over to White Coffee Pot Jr. and took the 22 home. I had
See, you were following
my
them
best
around.
friends went to Curly. The Billius family went to Curly,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, like, my best friend would get home from school early. He already
Yeah.
shooting baskets, listening to Tom Petty.
Sounds like you
You
got
know,
a
we're
little.
about to go play some Pac-Man, you know? I mean, some Donkey Kong, you know?
Sounds like you've got some sourness going on there.
And I don't want to indict Curly in the alley where all the kids smoke weed. So I'm not even going to do, you know, even though we're Courier sponsored at this point, it was illicit back in the 80s. You were going to turn green and like all that.
Still. But
You're
yeah,
not going to turn green. And it's not illicit, adult use. I can take you down the street right now. So anyway, Curly, you know, the Curly Dundalk thing was...
it's a real thing.
My parents offered to send me to Curly, Mount Carmel, whatever. I didn't want them to spend the money. And honestly, I wanted to stay with my friends. So it
Yeah.
wasn't really, like, it was getting on a weird bus. And, like, I just... What happened was there was racial tensions in Dundalk. Imagine that, back in the 80s. I grew up thinking I was going to go to Kenwood, because Colgate fed Kenwood all my mother, my uncles, everybody in the neighborhood went to Kenwood.
Yeah.
And then it got rezoned in 1980, 81, 82. So I spent my childhood thinking I was going to go to Kenwood. I wound up going to Dundalk. And there was a, you know, hubbub about race and this and that, and all the same crap that, you know, 40 years later, you
still
know,
there.
all the kids from Turner sat in one corner. I hope it's not that way anymore. But it was. I don't want to say segregated, but it was weird. You know, it was uptight. Archie Bunker's Dundalk is what I would say in the 80s. But Curly was just not. I loved that I went to Dundalk, and I loved that you went to Curly, and I love giving you a hard time because of it.
No, and it's great to do that too. I mean, I do the same thing with my friends that went to Calvert Hall, friends that went to
Loyola?
Loyola.
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
Forget
for
those
sure.
guys. And those Cardinal Gibbons guys. Come on.
We're
now.
not even going there.
Absolutely. And there's Mount St. Joe, the Mount.
True.
My son went to the hall,
Oh, really?
Perry Hall.
Oh.
I got
okay,
you.
all right,
Steve
all right.
Taormino, you're never coming back on the show now, right?
Well, it depends.
You had fun. I had fun. We had fun. Christy's going to have fun. I thought we were going to talk St. Francis. We can. We'll talk more stuff. Husband excited about baseball, football. He came in the room yesterday, looked at me and left, and I'm like, I made him sick. So I have the wife of Torben on that we mentioned yesterday. So thanks for coming by, man.
Good to see you, Ness.
Give Marty my best, right?
I will.
All right.
And I'll give Barry your best.
Yeah, please. Stitz, I'm looking for you. I got to have you on a show wherever you are. He said, Barry, I thought he meant my son. That's all right.
Well, you can do that.
JR has been here saving our. JR's getting a bowl of soup. I hope you get the filet mignon. I really do. You know, make sure you get the good stuff. Get a lobster while you're here. Get some crabs.
The soup is fantastic.
JR's kept us on the air. My son's here hanging out. My poor wife is back at the radio station making things work. It's all good. But Vehicles for Change, Steve Taormino, CC&A, Strategic Marketing.
Strategic media, yep.
All right, Strategic Media. I
Media.
said marketing.
That's okay. It doesn't matter.
I'm trying to rebrand you the whole time, whether you want to be or not. I'm Nestor. We're WNST. Back for more Costas right after this.